Michigan and Oklahoma. We're skipping later in the night on Saturday, actually. Michigan 5-point underdogs at in Norman, and total is 46 on this one.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for my best bet, which we'll talk about in a little bit, this would probably be my favorite play. First half under 23 and a half, minus 115. If you can find a 24, I would like that even better, but I think 23 and a half is like the most prevailing number. Simple, plain and simple. The defenses are the clear strengths of both teams. I know Oklahoma got John Mateer. They got Arbuckle, the play caller, but again, their strength is a defense. Brent Venables is a defensive menace to quarterbacks, and he's getting a pretty talented one coming in. But this is his first road start. And Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood looked solid against New Mexico, but again, step up in class on the road against an elite play caller. I think that Michigan wants to keep it very simple. They want to not let him put the ball in harm's way. They're going to allow him to maybe short stuff, screens, a lot of play action. So I'm looking for them to run the ball a ton. They were, fairly balanced in the first game, but like I said, against an elite defense like Oklahoma and an elite mind like Brent Venables, who has a track record of making not only just freshman quarterbacks, but quarterbacks overall. Like he makes them look really, really bad. So I expect a little bit more from the defenses in this specific game. Michigan does a good job of limiting big plays, so they'll need to do that with Mateer's legs. Simply because I don't think he's going to stretch the field a ton, but I do think that he'll be able to get the ball to Burks out of the slot. And they didn't really run the ball as well. Oklahoma, that is, they had 3.4 yards per carry. They had a running back get hurt. Jaden Ott only had one carry. He was their big acquisition. But Brent Venables said in an interview today that he'll be good to go. Arbuckle said he'll be looking for a greater workload. This will be the best defense also that Mateer has faced. I think Washington was probably the toughest that he's faced since becoming a starter, and he only completed 50% of his passes, one touchdown, one interception. This is a step up in defenses on both sides. I know you're going to hear a lot more about Brent Venables. I mean, about Underwood being a freshman first start against Venables, but we got to take into consideration that this is the best defense that Mateer's faced as well. I don't think we see a ton of big plays. I think we see a lot of running, a lot of punts early on. I'm looking at like a 10-7 type of game in the first 10-3, 7-3, somewhere around there in the first half. So I like the under 23 and a half for the first half.
Yeah, and so let me ask you from a splitting your bets between first half and full game, is that what we're generally doing for unders, or are you only strictly playing first half? Because I know in the past when overtimes could
Yep.
go literally forever, and we saw like 70 to 63
Yeah.
Texas A&M and LSU's from back in the day. That has clearly changed, and for the much better for an under better, and actually gives you some sort of chance to win in overtime as opposed to almost guaranteed losses. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit about, because like in baseball, I think with the guaranteed
First
runner
five.
and base, like the
Yep.
Manfred
Yep.
man, that just like literally drives me up a wall. But I'm not going to make that part of this podcast. So I'd like to hear from your college football perspective how you're kind of using those rule changes, or generally how you play your unders.
Yeah, so I generally play unders. If I like the full game, I'll look and see if there anything early on. Like in this matchup specifically, I think it's kind of be more of a filling out process. So to me, it's kind of matchup based. So I think that early on, both of these teams will be able to, settle their quarterbacks in because of the defensive aggression that both teams play with, and not wanting to put the ball in harm's way, because it takes one play to flip the field, short field for the opposite team, and you got a 3-play 12-yard drive and you get a touchdown, and that could flip the game. Because once, let's say, Michigan scores first, obviously Oklahoma has the, I think, more potent offense, but that means the defense for Michigan can kind of pin their ears back a little bit. They can play with a little bit more confidence. So generally, if I like an under, I want to bet the full game more, unless it's something like this matchup dependent. So I would say it's matchup dependent. In this specific game, I like the first half under more than I like the full game under. So I'll go, 7/10 of a unit on the first half under, and then play the rest of the unit on the full game, just so you don't have a full exposure. And you always can come back after halftime if you're seeing a thing. If you're saying like, hey, they're going a little bit more up pace, injuries, because Michigan has a starting linebacker who'll be out for the first half in this game. So that's something to monitor. He'll come back, so
Good
maybe he
old
might limit some of
targeting.
that explosive. Yeah, yeah, he got targeting, so maybe he'll come back and Oklahoma could be running big in the first half, and he comes back and he's stuffing the run. So I think it's kind of a feel out process. I typically like to do if I like a game and a matchup dependent, I typically do split a unit half and half. But in this specific matchup, I like the first half under a little bit more, so I'm putting a little bit more on the first half under than full game.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's good for anyone listening to this podcast to try to get a little bit more behind the scenes of what we're thinking about before we do things. And I mean, there's many ways to skin a cat, probably a little bit too vicious to for an analogy here, but I do think there's ways because unfortunately, there's nothing worse than playing a full game under it wins first half and you lose it the full game and vice versa.
Yep, yep, yep,
So most of the time, I usually just split it 50-50,
yep.
but I'm sure to each their own. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all about how you handicap the game. Like how I handicap a game if the matchup calls for it. And I think early on we could see some slow pace and kind of get a filling out process. I want to bet that early on because at the end, you as you go through the game, play callers get more comfortable, offenses get more comfortable, and then we could kind of see some mistakes being made. So it's all about the matchups to me.